Welcome to Design to Share Q&A. I'm Nicola.
And I'm Erwin.
I'd like to address a question that we've been posed. What makes a great living room?
Or rather, I should say, what makes a great living room great? I think one should start with the shell of the space. It's pretty much like an empty box, and one should make it look better than that. Larger, perhaps, more imposing, more dramatic, more impressive, more inviting.
Right.
And I think there are many ways to do that. So I think starting with the shell of the space, one does two things. One is to establish how it's going to be used, and one is to design it in such a way that it will look its best.
Right, to pick up on that, how is it going to be used? The function of the room. Today we see multifunctional rooms, such as, a family room. So you may have a family room as well as a formal living room. The family room where obviously the family gathers. You might have the children doing the homework or the parents checking on email, versus the formal living room where you entertain or you have parties.
But I think that there very much is kind of, the one is blending into the other.
Yes.
I think that with practical fabrics, with slimline TVs, with the rooms with people growing up in families, perhaps the children are using the family room more as they're teenagers and the parents not wanting to hang out with them. Their parents might end up in the living room or vice versa, perhaps.
Right.
So there's no reason why it shouldn't be used.
No, indeed. And, if you're buying a house, sometimes, you have a vision of how the house is going to be used. Down the line, say 5 years later, actually, it's very different.
Absolutely. Things do change, and I think one should be prepared to design for that.
Right.
And I think that that's quite important. And, of course, the design should relate to the rest of the house in a way.
Yes.
It should not be something that's so sort of odd and sort of stand out, either in terms of design or its formality.
Right.
It doesn't have to be as formal as perhaps as one remembers as a child, being the living room that one wasn't allowed to go into.
Right, right.
And also one other point to remember is the quantity of seating. I think it's advisable to have as many seats in a living room as one has in one's dining room.
Right, right. Also, I think balance and proportion is very important. Picking up on the fact, maybe some people prefer clean lines over curves, and how do you mix it? Can you mix it? Is it acceptable to mix, or say have more expensive pieces versus inexpensive pieces? And I say absolutely mix it up.
Of course. And the other thing I want to say is finally is about spending as much as one can. I think that if I say to you, you'd have to wear these boots or a pair of necktie, whatever it is, for the next 5 or 10 years, you would buy the best you could afford. And I think it's the same when it comes to the interior of your living room. You remember pieces when you were a child. You remember you have pieces that are passed down from generation to generation. Why not buy something that's really very expensive? Not everything in the room needs to be like that, but certainly
Right.
1 or 2 pieces or a certain percentage should really do that.
That could be special. So,
Absolutely.
whether it's the fabric that's $300 a yard, say, for just a throw pillow, but it's a special piece, versus, say the fabric that's on the ottoman that's more practical, say an ultra suede.
Right.
So I think to summarize, basically to have a great living room, it's the sum of all parts that come together, and it's a visual display to kind of excite the eye. Thank you very much for joining us, Design to Share Q&A. I'm Nicola.
And I'm Erwin.